Hi everyone, my name is Dr. Nivi Manokaran, and everyone here knows me as Dr. Nivi on Taboos. And I talk about everything that is tabooed, and one of the things that is tabooed or people don't want to talk about much or very shy of using them is probably sex toys. Today, I will be talking about sex toys with someone very special. She runs the company Normal Co. here in Australia, and her name is Lucy Wark. And I am super excited to talk to her because I have a lot of questions from you guys, always about sex toys. And this will be a great opportunity for us to hear from the maker of this sex toy at all. I think Lucy has gotten into here. She'll soon be sending me a request and be joining this live. Hello everyone, and I am extremely excited to see you all join me at this time. I was a little concerned because a lot of my followers are from India, and I know it is quite early in the day, so thank you so much for joining us, and I will be inviting Lucy soon, and let's start talking about it. So let me accept her request. Yep. Lucy, yes. Request. Hi Aditya. I thank you guys. Keep sending your questions as well, and we can ask.
Hi.
Hi, Lucy.
Hey, how are
Welcome,
you?
welcome. I'm good. How are you?
I'm so good. So thank you so much for having me, and hello to everyone who's joining. It's so nice to have you all here.
I know it's a pleasure having you, and I was super excited when I saw the name Normal Co. I think my main motive and the reason behind Untaboos is about making things untabooed, all those things that are
Yeah.
tabooed. And I liked how you had named it normal, trying to normalize the use of sex toys and sexual pleasure and making it very healthy and normalizing it. So amazing. Thank you so much to accepting to doing this. And I saw your toys range, and there was some amazing range. And I also saw the room where you squeezed yourself into today.
Yeah. So for anyone who hasn't seen it on our stories, our office is a little crowded today. So the main meeting room was taken. So I'm in a booth, but I can give you a little bit of an insight into what's on the other side of the camera, which
Yeah.
is all of these toys and some books.
Look,
So
I'm super
we're making
excited
it
to.
work.
No, amazing. That doesn't matter. I think size doesn't matter. So I think that's,
Actually, that's a really good
as we
point. We often
say,
get questions about that.
that's right.
Yeah, might be a
That's
good one to tackle later.
That's right. All right, Lucy. So welcome on board, and I'm just going to leave it to you to introduce yourself a little bit, and please tell us, or at least me, I would really want to know the motivation and the strength behind opening or starting a sex toy company.
Absolutely. So hi everyone. My name's Lucy. My pronouns are she, her, and I am the founder of Normal. I work with my co-founder and our sex coach, Georgia Grace, who's amazing. You can follow her at G-Spot. I think, like a lot of people, I didn't grow up thinking I would start a sex toy company. It wasn't what I had on my life plan when I was like 17 or 18. But I think over, a decade of my 20s and understanding how hard it can be to find information about pleasure and pleasurable sex, exploring my own sexuality and figuring out, that there weren't good resources if you're part of the LGBTQ plus community and you're trying to understand sort of what pleasure might look like for you, even going through things like having to sort of seek care for a sexual health issue or seeking care for pain during sex, which is incredibly common for people with vulvas. All of those experiences for me showed me that the stigma and the taboos that we have around sex are stopping us from having healthy conversations and from accessing good evidence-based information and ultimately from enjoying the pleasure we all deserve. So with Normal, what we do is we make modern, shame-free sex toys, and we try and make it really easy to figure out what's going to be the right product for you, and to help you have a great time with it once you get that product, and then we use the money that we make from doing that to fund creating free, digital and inclusive online sex education. So we're sort of creating an ever-growing library of sex education resources too. And yeah, the purpose is probably in the name. So we called it normal because we think talking about sex should be normal, pleasure should be normal, and this should be a conversation that we all know how to have a bit better.
Absolutely, absolutely. And thank you so much. I'm just going to dive straight into the questions.
I mean, we've promised questions.
You know, that because I get a lot of questions, you know, and you know, I think before we get into the range of products you have, I have a lot of people asking me or feeling guilty or shame in using sex toys, and they almost feel like they are, you know, doing something shameful, doing something really wrong by using sex toys and not trying to, you know, have more sex with a partner or something like that. So what is your take on guilt and using sex toys?
Firstly, you're definitely not alone. That's a really common emotion, and it's worth recognizing where that might come from, because sometimes we can almost put more pressure on ourselves to get rid of the guilt, and it becomes a secondary form of pressure on ourselves. But, you know, in a society where we're often given this messaging that promiscuity is a bad thing, that, you know, that pleasure is something that we should feel guilty about, that masturbation is something we should do in secret, that even, you know, that partnerships are only about, you know, having a family and having children and not about pleasure. It's no wonder that some of us can feel that something like self-pleasure and something that can support you in exploring what you like and what brings you pleasure might be something to feel guilty about. I think something that's really important to note with that is that for so many people, products like sex toys are actually an incredibly powerful tool for figuring out what they like. You know, you can use those tools in an environment where you feel comfortable, where you've got plenty of space and time to experiment and think about what feels good to you. And that's something that can support really great partnered sex, as well as just being a really fun, wonderful, natural, healthy thing that you can do on your own. So I think really remembering that for a lot of people, actually, that's where they figure out what they like. It's not necessarily just through sort of sex with a partner, or even through, you know, things like pop culture or pornography, if you watch pornography. So it really can be an incredibly good learning tool. I think also something that we'll often hear as a reservation is that it can be that a lot of people will feel, oh, if my partner wants to bring a sex toy into partnered sex, then I've failed, or if I bring a sex toy into partnered sex, then my partner might feel that it's a reflection on
he's not
them.
good enough.
Yeah. And I think really sort of challenging that narrative and actually saying, look, like this is a teammate, not a competitor. And
it could be
to all
fun. It could be fun, the three of us together.
And I think talking to the fact that this expands the pleasure that you can have. It's not a substitute for the pleasure you can have with a partner, but it really can expand the possibilities of sex, and that it's something that can be an incredible tool that brings more pleasure to your partner and to you. So I think, you know, that's something that we hear all the time.
Really you're right. I think people always ask us, or even think that sex toys are only supposed to be used alone, or if you don't have a partner. But I think it's a really nice thing to let people know that even during partnered sex, you can always use a sex toy, jazz it up with a sex toy, and keep it healthy. In that way, we are normalizing using a toy between both partners, and it does not necessarily have to bring in insecurity for either of the partners just because we're using a sex toy just to jazz it up a bit.
Absolutely. I don't know if this is helpful, but I can sort of give some examples of what people might do with partnered sex toys as well.
Absolutely.
Is now a good time, or do you want to? Okay.
No, so I think while we're talking about partner sex, do you want to start off with showing some partnered sex toys? Yes.
For sure. So something that a lot of people love as like a beginner toy is something that's called a palm vibrator. So they're very small, cute. They fit in your palm, hence the name. This is one from our range called Billy, but can be really useful. For example, for people with vulvas, clitoral stimulation is essential for probably a vast majority of people to experience orgasm. But when we've grown up in a society where we often see penetrative,
Penetrative.
sex. Yeah, so sort of penis and vagina sex as the main form of sex in our pop culture. We often don't think about clitoral stimulation enough, and so this can be something really useful that kind of slides between the bodies and can add that clitoral stimulation really easily. It's pretty flexible and soft, and also doesn't get picked up on airport scanners, which is always very helpful.
See, I think another very important thing with vibrators is a lot of the people think that small vibrating devices or vibrators are only for women. But I really, like, I do tell a lot of my clients, and I do believe that you can use a bit of that vibrator to even men, like the tip of the, penis or the glans. You can use a vibrator to actually vibrate it, or use the vibration to just stimulate the top. Sometimes even under the scrotum and, in the perineal area, putting a vibrator there does give a bit of a stimulation, and so there are places even in men where you can use vibrators to feel stimulated. So again, vibrator not necessarily have to be a female toy. It can be used by both men and women.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's such a great point, and it can be used on a penis for solo pleasure. It can be used in partnered sex. Like, there's a whole diversity of ways. And for example, there are also lots of toys that are designed to provide pleasure to both partners. That's hands-free as well. So there's things like
do you have something to show? Like
So this is an example. This is what's known as a C ring or a cock ring. I'm not sure how much I'm allowed to say that on Instagram, but we'll hope for the best.
No, you can. Go for it.
Yeah, but something like this can be good. Essentially, it slides onto the base of the penis while you're sort of flaccid or semi-erect, and with lots of lubricant, obviously, but puts a little bit of pressure on the base of the penis, which allows for sort of harder and longer lasting erections. You should obviously only use it for about 20 or 30 minutes at a time, just to ensure that you're not putting any health risks in there. But it's something where with one of these, you can position this. So for example, if you're having penetrative sex with a partner with a clitoris, you can put this on the penis, turn this upwards, and add the vibrating part so that it actually applies sort of stimulation to the clitoris for that partner, as well as supporting sort of stronger and longer lasting erections for a partner with a penis. Similarly, if you are having sex with someone, if you're having anal sex or sex with a partner with a penis, that's also something that you could do in that area of the body as well. So it's certainly, there's a lot of toys, and that's just one type, but there's tons. Other brands have tons, and it's really worth exploring. With couples toys,
this is amazing
kind of
what you showed now, because I think it's like you said, it's a small toy. It's not necessarily huge, and the
scale.
function.
This is the
look at how cute. And the functionality of that, by satisfying both partners, and to be honest, both the man and the woman, to just experience that extra vibrator or the extra stimulation, just to try it out. And I think, without feeling intimidated or without feeling worried about an extra thing coming in, I just feel like, it's nice to have some fun and try things that are like that. And I think both your vibrator and this that you showed now kind of just tells us that to have great sex or sexual stimulation, large size is not something that matters. And
a lot of people, I think, have seen the classic big old wand vibrators, which are great, if they're your thing, but they're sort of about the length of your forearm, and they sound like a lawnmower. And so if that's your first experience of sex toys, you may not have seen that newer wave of toys that are sort of a lot smaller, very body safe, really nice to the touch, and they sort of look much more like beautiful objects rather than needing to imitate anatomy as well. So there's a whole new wave of really fun sex toys out there.
Sure. And sorry, while we're at it, just a quick question. Are your toys, especially the ones that are not wired, all waterproof?
So great question. With our toys, some of them are waterproof to an IPX7 level, which is basically saying you can hold this underwater in a bath, you can use it in a shower for as long as you want. And then some are waterproof to an IPX6 level, which is saying, hey, you can use this in a shower for about 10 minutes. And then at that point, you'd want to stop. And then some are not designed for water use. So we have manuals on our website that tell you for each toy what the correct one is. But bath and shower toy use can be incredibly fun. Really recommend that.
Yeah, and I think for many of them, who are already probably living in a family situation, or have toilet is probably, bathrooms and toilets and bath time and shower times could be one of the times when they're having a me time or their personal space. And, a lot of the time people would like to use it there, and it is good to know that waterproof toys are available and there are different gradients and different levels of it. And it's amazing also to know how they have a manual. And I would like to tell all my followers that it's very important to follow the aftercare instructions that are there.
Yes.
In the toys, because that is what keeps them long lasting. And I mean, they are very hardy. Of course, they come with waterproof features and things like that. But in spite of all of that, keeping them hygienic, clean, pat them dry, the way we store them, all those things actually give them a long life. And it is very important that we do that both for hygiene reasons and for longevity of the product that you've bought.
Yeah,
So that's
absolutely.
amazing. That's
Yeah,
good.
100%
And
agreement from me.
coming to because these are some things that you keep telling people, because people get so disappointed so easily. They buy something, and if they're not storing it right, if they've left it watery, stuff like that, they're so disappointed with things. And I tell them, even with terms of metal or chargers or rusting and things like that, because you're going to use it inside your vagina, sometimes even to whatever. So just we have to be very casual about the cautious about the hygiene that comes along with it.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And I actually, do you mind if I just jump in, just for anyone who is, thinking about maybe buying a toy for the first time? A few things to look out for is body safe or medical grade silicone as well. So just making sure that the materials that they've used are all designed to sort of not be reactive with the body, and also that they're not going to do anything like trap bacteria. Don't need to be scared about it. Just double check it whenever you're looking for a brand. And the other thing that can be really useful too is just thinking about returns policies as well. And the reason for that is even like the greatest sex toy in the world won't work or won't be a perfect fit for every person's body. And the reason for that is our anatomy is all different. Like our erogenous zones are different. Some of us will be really responsive to clitoral stimulation. Some people will really love perineum stimulation. Some people it's nipples or neck or back or anything. So knowing that, if you have a brand where you're shopping with them, that they have either a really good sort of exchange policy or a full-blown return policy, just so that you can shop confidently knowing that you're never going to get something, buy it, take it home, find it's not for you, and then realize that you can't necessarily keep it.
That's a
you're not able to
good tip. That's a
it.
good tip. Yeah, I think that's very important. What you've said now is it's a very good take home message. Yeah, fantastic, Lucy. And while we're at it, I was also going to ask that, how this is the end of financial sale. And I always tell people that, if you're going to try something, and if you don't want to spend a fortune and you're looking for a sale and stuff like that, this is the best time to jump in and look at, some really nice things. Would you be able to show us what you have from your side that'll, like for first buyers or people to buy as a package or
Yeah, absolutely. So right now we have an end of financial year sale, which we're calling the Winter of 69. We love sex puns. It's like the best part of our job. So with this one, it basically means you can shop everything in our range at 69% of the normal price. So that's like a 31% discount. So it's a fairly large amount off. And if you're starting out and you're like, I have never bought a sex toy before, not really sure where to begin, I would often recommend something really simple like a bullet vibrator. So this is one called Frankie of ours. So you can see it next to my face. I'll keep doing the little demos.
That's nice.
But yeah, so it's really like simple but surprisingly sort of powerful. So you can go up to like a relatively strong vibration. It's great for things like clitoral stimulation, vulva stimulation, perineum stimulation, nipple stimulation. Can travel with you and is very easy to use, but is quite affordably priced if you're just sort of starting out. And I'd always recommend our amazing sex coach Georgia does an introduction video for every toy. So she'll talk about a bit of history about the toy, talk about how you might want to use it solo, talk about how you might want to use it with a partner, and then also, cleaning, storage, and just all of that good stuff to make sure that your toy is kept in a great condition. So that's a really good place to start if you're not sure. Another good place to start if you're sort of, again, like just beginning with toys might be something like the one I showed before, which is like a little palm vibrator Billy. So again, like really simple, really easy. Doesn't
starting
look or
to
feel
really
like a sex toy. Yeah, I'll love.
Yes.
I'm excited that we've sent you one because I think it's such a great toy. It's also super squishy and cute. So it's just so comfy. Yeah, I love Billy. It's probably my favorite as well. And then I think if you were thinking, oh, like I'm comfortable spending a bit more, or maybe I want to try something a little bit more advanced. So, you know, you might be wanting internal stimulation, or you may want something like clitoral stimulation. There's a couple that might be good. So this is actually our bestseller. So it's called Quinn, and it's a clitoral stimulation toy. The reason why clitoral stimulation is really helpful, and for anyone who doesn't know, the clitoris is the visible external glands is the bud at the top of the vulva, and then the full structure actually extends backwards behind sort of wraps around the vagina as well. And it's think of it as the sort of biggest pleasure organ for people with vulvas or for females. So it's a really critical and important and awesome part of pleasure for people with vulvas. And toys like this one, which have become really popular, are actually often doing one of two things. They're either sort of sucking gently on the external glands of the clitoris, or they're pulsing air towards it. The reason why that feels good is it stimulates blood flow in that area of the body, and it feels, most people describe it like amazing oral sex, or sort of like the best oral sex you've ever had. So that's why this one is very popular. This category sort of came about maybe about a decade ago, and has rapidly become, I think, a really important one. Also for a lot of women or people with vulvas, like starting to explore what actually does make me orgasm, this can be a really great option for that.
Yeah,
that one's also useful
nice.
because I think it's a great way of figuring out if that's essential for you, if you haven't had the ability to maybe explore that with a partner, or haven't felt able to do it sort of yourself with, you know, analog masturbation.
And I think it's also good, like you said, for you to explore yourself, because if you're struggling with not knowing what is actually giving you pleasure, and if you can't explore it on your own, I find that it's very difficult to communicate that with a partner. If you can't, if you don't know yourself what gives you actually pleasure, or what gives you immense pleasure, it's so hard for someone else to come and figure it out for you.
That's a little bit like, oh, sorry, go on.
No. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just thinking, it reminds me of that phrase or that idea of sort of taking responsibility for your own orgasm, or taking responsibility for your own pleasure. That can be complicated, obviously, you know, that can depend a little bit on what's going on in a partnership or a sexual relationship. But I think that notion of, hey, you know, it's my job and to understand what I like, so I can communicate it really well to a partner, that's really helpful as well. Yeah,
fantastic. Yeah.
So a toy like that's awesome. And then if you're interested in exploring internal stimulation, I'd actually recommend something like this one, which is called Darcy. So it has a lot of different uses. This part can explore internal G-spot stimulation. This part also vibrates and can be used as a sort of longer and fuller feeling sensation. So this would go sort of inside the vagina and be used, in a come here motion for G-spot stimulation, or sort of internally and vibrate and be able to hit areas like the A-spot inside the vagina. But the useful thing about it is it can also basically be used as a whole body wand. So you can actually use this externally on the clitoris, you can use it on the perineum, you can kind of use it everywhere. So it's probably like our most versatile toy. So I would always say, if you're like, oh, I don't know what to grab, but you know, I want something that has a lot of uses and I want external and internal, can be a really good option. I'll stop talking now. I feel like I've given you so much.
No, this is all, I think this is very important, because people want, it's nice that we're able to show them, you know, rather than just talk about it. It's just fantastic that I'm talking with you now and we're able to show the toys to them. So I think that's amazing. And I also wanted to ask you, do you have any anal toys?
So great question. We actually have some in development that we're very excited to bring out later this year. So there will be sort of a full range actually exploring anal sex. So that we're very, very excited for. However, a couple of our toys can actually be used for sort of anal play as well. So I think one thing that's worth saying is a lot of people hear anal sex and they maybe think of what they've seen in pornography, which is very hard and fast penetrative sex with a penis,
I call it as bang bang.
Yes. Exactly. And that can be amazing. But it's also worth really noting that, you know, anal play can be internal or external, and it does not have to be that degree of force. It can be much slower, and also noting things like, you know, that the anus doesn't self lubricate. So you'd want to use like lubricant in a way where, for example, people might find that their vaginas will self lubricate. You really do need to be a little bit more careful around it. And similarly,
and I also want to just add, sorry,
No.
I also want to just add to say that the anus doesn't expand as much or as freely as the vagina is meant to, expand. As we know, and the vagina can expand as much as to have a baby out of it and then go back. But the anus doesn't expand, and the anal sphincter is a bit more tighter than what the vagina is. So I think wanting to, when you're wanting to have anal sex, and it's for the first time, especially like you said, exploring it very slowly with a lot of lubricant is very, very important. And I think anal stimulus and anal play probably will play, play such a important role before you can just go ahead and start, having penetrative sex. Like you said, if most people's sex education is from pornography only, unfortunately, you're looking at something that is most of the things are easy, most of the things are rough, and most of the things are lasting forever, and they're big, big, bright, and beautiful. I always say it's like a superhero film. It's unnatural, and it is shot, as a film, so it's not realistic.
I love that.
So,
we often say it's like porn is to learning sex what Fast and the Furious is to learning to drive. Like it's
that's
designed,
right.
it's
Exactly.
designed, it's
Oh,
entertainment.
yeah,
It's not an instruction manual. Yeah.
That's exactly
So
right. That's
having a
exactly
little
right.
bit of porn literacy can always be helpful. But if people are looking for toys from our range which can be used, one that you can use and is actually our blended stimulation toy, Piper. So this is one use for it. Oh, I can see my eye through here.
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay, so one use for this would be that you use this longer part of the toy inside the vagina and sort of explore sort of a sensation of fullness and vaginal stimulation, and then this shorter arm can go on the clitoris and sort of apply blended stimulation, which allows for larger orgasms. But this is also something which can actually be used to explore internal anal play, or to use something like this actually on the outside as well.
Yeah.
The thing that's always really important to note with any toys that you're using in anal play is that you want to have a flared base that's substantially wider.
That is what I was going to say. Yeah. I think that is very important to let people know. So anything with a broad base is very important, because you don't want things to slide or become slippery and go into the anal canal, because once it's gone in, it's difficult for you to take it off. Then you might have to go to the hospital and get it out that way. So it's very important that your anal toys have a wider base, so that they don't, when the toy is going in, you have a wider base that sits outside the anus so that it doesn't go in.
Absolutely. And I think sometimes when it comes to anal play, it does require a little bit more preparation, and it does require a couple of those warnings around using lubrication, going slowly, making sure that toys you use have a flared base. Sometimes people will sort of say, okay, what's the upside here? Like, why am I exploring anal play? Because it sounds like a lot of work. And I think a couple of reasons that can be really worth noting is, firstly, for a lot of people with vulvas, they'll actually say anal play helps to create much deeper, more full body feeling orgasms for them. So sort of doing things like combining clitoral stimulation with anal play can be really powerful and might expose you to a new sensation. And then for a person with a penis, the prostate, which some can kind of call the male equivalent of the G-spot, but is a real pleasure center for people with penises, actually just sits inside the anus. And so toys that put pressure and stimulation on the prostate, or even sort of combine stimulation on the prostate and the perineum, that stretch of skin between the anus and the scrotum, can also be a really, really pleasurable experience. So,
and I think what you said now is very important, Lucy, because I don't think, like, many people do not understand or even know about the prostate stimulation and how much pleasure it can actually give someone. Even like perineal stimulation, just the area between the anus and the scrotum, that area is called the perineum, and perineal stimulation. And like Lucy said, toys are one thing, but even just exploring your body, you can use something as simple as your own fingers to give yourself prostate massage or prostate stimulation, and stuff like that. Then you'll know that that's giving you pleasure. Then you can go for things and buy toys that that causes great pleasure. So so fantastic. I think that's amazing to talk about anal pleasure and stuff like that as well. is that the range that you have? That
So I'm just looking around to see if I've missed any.
Yeah, sure.
So one that I can show as well is a wand, which is called Charlie. This is our biggest one. I'm using, yet again, my head to demonstrate size.
Yeah.
But toys like this are generally used with a partner or solo, actually. So I should say both. They can be used for both. They're often seen as a partnered toy, but can be used in either way. And the sort of head here flexes and vibrates. It's really soft, but actually has quite firm vibration. So soft to the touch, but firm vibration. And you can use this all over the body. And something that can be really helpful with a toy like this is if you're in a position with a partner where you want to kind of give extra stimulation to yourself or to them, and it's a difficult reach for your hand or for their hand, something like this can be a really useful tool to enhance those positions and to add stimulation that sort of helps someone to experience more pleasure or even to experience orgasm in that position. So that's often how toys like these ones can be used as well. They were first sold though back when they were sort of sold often to housewives, but it wasn't really allowed to market sex toys. They were often sold as back massages.
Nice.
So you could find them in stores as massages, and they actually do give quite good back
Yes,
massages. I have used the toy
I
for
was
that
going to
as
say,
well.
even the tiny vibrators, like what
Yeah.
Charlie, it will work as such a nice head massage when you're having a headache. Because they do such a good job. Yeah.
So yeah, I often find myself just at my desk accidentally giving myself a
Putting
massage
Charlie
with a
on the
sample toy.
forehead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So don't underestimate the back massaging. But yeah, I think I've shown you each of the toys in the range. Maybe something that would just be helpful is like with each toy, we kind of send you a cute little instruction manual that shows you all the vibrations that you can have.
Wow.
Gives you a little bit of instruction for how to get it started. Links out the product manual. Yeah, so it's a kind of, it's designed to be really easy, even if you're a beginner. Yeah.
Sorry. And before we wrap up, just one other thing is I want to emphasize the use of lubricant along with toys as well. As you said, I mean, even with vagina, I always advise people to use a good lubricant because we sometimes do feel like we are wet and the wetness is enough. But in all honesty, when you're using products, you just want to make sure that your vaginal flora and the lactobacillus that's in there is just, just all intact and it's not taking too much of the dryness or the silicone that's coming in or rubber or plastic, whatever kind of toy that you've chosen to buy. So using a good water-based lube is fantastic, and I think that's a really good idea to use a good water-based lube. I think for silicone toys it's not ideal to use silicone lubes, is that correct?
Yeah, so that's correct. And a lot of people will say, oh, what's the difference between silicone and a water-based lube? Silicone lube is longer lasting and waterproof, but also may sometimes do things like could stain sheets or need more washing to get out of things like sheets and clothes. Whereas water-based lubricant washes off with water, is a little bit less longer lasting, but will work well with surfaces like our toys, which are made of silicone. So most sex toys, people recommend if it's made of silicone, combine it with a water-based lubricant. And if it's something like steel or plastic or glass or other sort of materials, then those are usually safe to use with a silicone lubricant. And then there are as well some, the kind of third category is oil-based lubricants. Some people like to use those, particularly if you find that you can be reactive to ingredients in other lubricants. They're actually a very traditional form of lubricant as well. So there's also those on the market. Yeah.
Perfect. Sounds good. And I also just want to let people know that they can drape condoms on top of sex toys if you're using toys between casual partners. And if it's something that you're sharing with casual partners and you're not sure, just use condoms like how you would use it on yourself for safe sexual practices. So if you're using the toy, use a condom, and please don't use the same condom into the other person as well. Remove it, change into a new condom, and then use that with the other person. So you can use condoms while you're sharing sex toys. That is something that I always advise people, just to be safe, so that you're not contaminating or transferring STIs and things like that.
Absolutely. It should all be about pleasure. And so making sure the good hygiene
safe and yes. So I think that's something very important. And one last question before we wrap up is, Lucy, do do you do international posting? The reason I'm asking is I do have a lot of followers from India, and I'm sure after today's session I'll be getting all these messages, asking, will they send it to India or will they send it to, so I really want to know if you will do international posting.
Currently we don't. We would love to start. So if you are in India and you're keen, maybe even just send us a little message, because I think if we got enough of those, it's a pretty easy thing for us to say, okay, cool, like India's the next place where we'd love to go. I would love actually to expand our sales to India as well. I think it would be incredible to be able to bring this.
Because I think in India they're looking for a lot of online brands, because having stores, sex toy stores there is kind of still controversial, sometimes illegal, and they don't have it, they don't encourage it. So a lot of people are buying it from online stores, in other stores like Love Crave and stuff, and Amazon, and things like that. And they always ask me for good stores that are having good products and stuff like that. So definitely I would recommend all my followers to actually send a DM. And like you said, the more number of people are requesting it, you'll probably be able to do it.
I think as well, even if, we're not the brand that you buy from, if you ever do want like a recommendation or some education about sex toys, feel free to DM us and we can recommend other brands that are available in your market, or we can send you to some of our free sort of guides and articles too. So we're very happy to do that, because for us, I think like expanding access to toys and education is the goal.
And so, pleasure. Yes.
So,
no, thank you, Lucy. I think that was amazing that we saw all of this, and thank you everyone for joining us. And I know there are so many people who are asking about the sex toys for men. I guess you've joined us a little late, so we have kind of covered a whole range of sex toys for men, women, and partnered sex in today's session. I will be saving this session and sharing it on both our pages, where you can go and have a look at all the toys that Lucy is actually showing out. And the end of financial sale, there is a code that we will be putting on our story, which you can, put it in to get the 69%, 31% that's on sale.
It's a 69% of the usual price, which is 31% off. Always want to be clear with people.
Sorry, but so let's do that. And thank you so much for everything today, Lucy. It was absolutely gorgeous talking to you.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Nice
to meet everyone virtually. Have a good evening or afternoon. Bye.
Thank you, Lucy. Bye.